To you by Sterling Automotive. We were just chatting a little bit about the LSU Alabama week. Obviously, it's the much anticipated week of the season. The last couple of years, it's been a little bit lackluster, even though last year we played a lot better than we played really any other game that year. Really crazy, funky, weird things happen LSU Alabama week, but I'm not going to speak on the Alabama side. That is what our good friend Charlie Potter is. He's the beat writer for the Alabama Crimson Tide for 247. Charlie, thanks for joining the show, man. I appreciate you taking time out of Halloween and coming spending with us. It's probably a lot less fun than a Halloween party.
Yeah, no problem. You guys can hear me okay, all right?
Perfect. We can hear you perfectly.
Yeah. No, I mean, this always falls in the bye week, so I've learned to enjoy Halloween on Saturday because Monday becomes game week.
Okay, that's before we get into it, right? We had this conversation last week. Shouldn't Halloween be kind of like Thanksgiving, and it should just be that last weekend of October, right? Like, it shouldn't be October 31st.
Right. I mean, I don't know the significance of the 31st. I'm not a Halloween historian, but kids are going to enjoy the weekend more. People that are going to go to Halloween parties are going to enjoy the weekend more. It just makes sense to have it on like Friday or Saturday.
I couldn't agree more. But let's get into the football talk. LSU Alabama is always a very anticipated, fun week of the season. The last couple years have not really lived up to the hype. There really wasn't much hype because LSU was kind of struggling. Years prior, it's kind of lived up. This year, it kind of feels like the momentum is building. LSU started the season off a little shaky. They've kind of found their stride. Alabama is doing Alabama things, minus the loss to Tennessee. What's the feel coming in of the team and the fan base of Alabama coming in this week, and what do they expect to see next weekend or this weekend?
I think there's a lot of intrigue. I mean, you mentioned the Tennessee game. Of course, you had the world is ending kind of moment for Alabama, but they've only had 2 undefeated seasons under Saban. Those weeks happen, and Tennessee's been playing great this year. But they were to bounce back pretty well against Mississippi State. I think people want to see them be more consistent in terms of running the ball. I think the defense played a lot better, but the defensive performance to me isn't just a signal of, oh, they're going to be okay. Alabama's handled that air raid really well since Mike Leach took over. That hasn't been a problem. So this is going to be, these next 2 weeks really, with LSU and Ole Miss on the road, are going to be, I think we're going to find out a lot about this team if it's like a lot of the teams we've seen under Nick Saban where they have that one hiccup but can bounce back, or if it's kind of like last year's team that just struggled away from Brian Denny. So I think the leadership, all of that, it's going to be a challenge just to see if they can kind of answer the bell. And if they do, then this team has the potential to compete for an SEC and a national championship. If not, then it's going to be, given the talent Alabama has, it's going to be a bit of a disappointment.
Part of Alabama's calling card over the last, I don't know,
God,
Saban years has been
16, yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Don't rub it in. I mean, we know. You're welcome for your dad.
Oh,
it's
easy.
my real dad.
Okay. But the calling card has been like, obviously the defense has always been very stout. You've always had a very good front seven, but the secondary has always been extremely talented, right? And the receivers have always been extremely talented. It seems like watching from afar, watching as a college football fan, but not really in the middle of the Alabama fan base, it seems like the secondary has, left a lot to be desired, and same with the wide receiver. It doesn't seem like you have that big play, or they haven't had that big playability from the receiver position. Am I right on my assessment? Am I wrong on my assessment? And what's the feelings of, obviously the fan base there, I'm sure is very logical and reasonable about these types of things. So talk to me a little bit about that.
I think you're partially right. I think Alabama's been missing a number 1 wide receiver this fall. They don't have that first round pick right now. I think some people thought Jermaine Burton could be that coming over from Georgia, and he's played well at times, but hasn't been maybe the impact player that they had hoped. They've had some other guys step up. Younger guys have done so. Ja'Cory Brooks going into his second year, I think, has been the closest thing to number 1 receiver for Alabama. But they've just kind of been lacking in terms of consistency from that entire position. So that one I agree with. From a defensive back standpoint, outside of the Tennessee game, the secondary's played really well. They haven't given up a lot of explosive plays, and I kind of chalk some of that up to just being in the wrong position, maybe not making adjustments from a coaching staff standpoint. So yeah, any safety in the SEC is not going to be able to cover Jalen Hyatt on a consistent basis.
Right.
That's just how it is. And DeMarco Hellams is a great player. He's probably one of the hardest hitters in Alabama's defense. He's not doing that either. So I think the secondary, for the most part, has played well. Now we see Eli Ricks in the mix. I know that's probably a sore subject here, but played his ass off against Mississippi State and should be back in the starting lineup when they make the trip down to Baton Rouge. So I think if they can continue to just not give up explosive plays like they have in 7 out of 8 games, the secondary's been pretty good this fall.
What about, you talked about Eli Ricks. Obviously he transferred in. He didn't really get a lot of playing time early on. What was the reason why, if there was a reason why, and what contributed to him starting to play against Mississippi State?
I think it's a lot of things. Talking to Nick Saban today. But I think really the big thing is coming off that injury, that's going to take some time. And I think that he came in needing to knock some rust off. He needed to add some weight. Then he hurt his back in the preseason. Mm-hmm. And let's be real. Alabama has really good depth at the cornerback position. Kyrie Jackson is a former JUCO standout, played well last year down the stretch. Terran Arnold's a former 5-star recruit that I think is one of the guys in the future of that position. So they have 4 corners that they feel really good about. I don't think it's necessarily so much so that Eli was doing something wrong as the younger guys were doing something right, and they were healthy and available. But after this Tennessee game, they chose to make a change, and that left people wondering, like, where the hell has Eli Ricks been this whole time? And I get that. I get it. I understand the optics to that. But, you come in, you have to learn a new system, gain some confidence, and it looks like he's done that. I'm sure there's more to the story, but for the most part, I think it is more so to do with other guys were playing well as less than it was Eli Ricks not being able to grasp a new defense.
Charlie, talk to us about, so you get this coveted transfer in from Georgia Tech. The feeling around Tuscaloosa going into the season, did you know that you were going to get this kind of explosiveness from Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield? Because he looks like a whole lot like a certain back that Saban had under him that transferred away from there that now resides in New Orleans.
No, I get that Alvin Kamara comparison. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because he's a versatile dude. He can catch the ball in the backfield. I think he leads Alabama in reception. So, yeah, he's cut from that same cloth.
Very slippery. Very slippery.
Exactly. I don't know if – I thought he was going to make a big-time contribution, but I think had they not added Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back room looked pretty good, even though you lost Brian Robinson. Kamar Wheaton, a former 5-star, transferred to SMU after not playing. It still looked like it was in pretty good hands with Jace McClellan, Boydell Williams, Trey Sanders, who really hasn't played at all this year. So when they added Jahmyr Gibbs, it kind of felt like a luxury pick. Now it seemed like a necessary move because some of those guys are still knocking off rust from knee injuries suffered last year. Both McClellan and Boydell Williams missed most of the season with season-ending issues, but Jahmyr's been everything and then some. They really liked him when he got on campus. He was able to go through some of the playoff practices. Of course, he didn't play or travel to Indianapolis or anything like that, but that as soon as he stepped on campus, they were pretty impressed with what he was able to do. I think he's only built on that, and not only the versatility and the elusiveness, just the top line speed that he gives this offense has been much needed, and he's been behind Bryce Young and Will Anderson. I think there's a real argument to be made that Jahmyr Gibbs is Alabama's third best player.
Agreed, 100%. I have a small future on him to win the Heisman. I don't think he's going to get. I don't think he's going to get the love that he deserves. But what I wanted to ask you was, what's kind of the vibe around Tuscaloosa going into this game? Obviously, LSU makes a huge deal out of it. Certainly under Les Miles, we always take the bye week, and then we were talking about this a little bit off the air of like how the bye week works. But what's the vibe around Tuscaloosa and how it's not the Alabama that you usually get in terms of LSU fans. It's not the boogeyman if we're doing Halloween stuff. So I'm wondering, how do y'all feel in Tuscaloosa about going into this game? Because new head coach, it's not Ed Orgeron, it's not Les Miles. This is a new regime, and so it feels a little bit different down here. So I'm wondering what y'all are thinking.
I think the fans, it's probably a mixed bag. I think, like you said, LSU fans were probably expecting a different Alabama. I think Alabama fans were probably expecting a worse LSU, if we're being honest. And I think LSU's been a little bit of a surprise this season just because it's going to take time under a first-year head coach, who you think it would. I think the players, they've adjusted well to that. But, no, I think I don't think the Brian Kelly factor is something that Alabama fans are losing sleep over. The 2 times Alabama played a Notre Dame coached Brian Kelly team, they won pretty handily in the postseason as well. So it was what was that, 2012 national championship game,
wow.
and then you had
not my team.
But I'm just saying, on the big stage when Notre Dame's supposed to show up, they didn't against Alabama. So I don't think that's a factor in this. But no, I think that this is shaping up to be a more intriguing matchup. And you can say it's not your team. Alabama's not my team either. I'm not speaking for the fan base. I cover the team. I'm not that kind of guy. So it's just, I think from this standpoint, this is a game that they probably weren't worried about as much 2 months ago, and now it's more so.
Yep.
Yeah, so speaking to that, maybe they're not afraid of Brian Kelly or a Brian Kelly team. But in Nick Saban's tenure there, this is pretty early for them to be coming into this game with a loss on the schedule. Is the feeling around Tuscaloosa a little bit kind of iffy? Because, I mean, realistically speaking, there's a very good chance if this game is lost, playoff chances are pretty much out. How does that feel going into this game? Because that's kind of uncharted waters, and it's not usual. It's not a usual thing in this game.
I mean, you're right. I mean, you got to win this week and next week. I don't think they're worried about Austin Peay and Auburn. But it is a situation where they know that if they don't play up to their potential in Baton Rouge, then the goals for this season are pretty much squashed. Or I haven't looked at all the variables that can go into play in that, or tiebreakers, whatever. But if they know if they take care of business, they're in Atlanta. And I think that's been very much so discussed in that locker room. They're well aware of where they stand. But heck, you had the years that they lost back-to-back games to Ole Miss when Hugh Freeze was in town. I mean, they've had losses in October. They usually come in November, though, and it's came against LSU or Auburn. But this has happened before. And I do think, though, with this team, a lot of talk's just been around the mindset. I know that sounds cliche and kind of dumb, but it is a situation where when they're saying things like anxiety played a factor in the Tennessee game, you just kind of wonder, well, what is the leadership on this team doing? What are these guys doing to even have that as an excuse? And so if you're going to go on the road where they've struggled the last 2 years, last year and obviously this year, losing games to A&M and Tennessee, if you're going to go into Baton Rouge, which will be at full tilt for the first time since 2018, it's going to be a challenge. That's going to be something where anxiety plays a factor. So it's dumb, but I'm more interested to see how they respond from a mindset and approach standpoint. Because if they go out there, play with those nerves, and start committing penalties like they have on the road, then it's going to be tough to win this game. I'm curious to see how they kind of respond to that, what has been kind of a trend the last 2 years.
Let's flip it back to LSU a little bit. Obviously, LSU has kind of found their stride as far as the offense goes. The defense has made pretty good adjustments. In your opinion, right, in covering Alabama, what is the biggest challenge that LSU poses to Alabama, whether it be, Jaden Daniels kind of getting out of the pocket, or now the fact that he's able to throw the ball a lot better than he had in the past, or, defensively, the way we can, kind of bring some pressure with different looks with, our defensive ends, and then, hybrid linebackers and Harold Perkins?
Now, I think Jaden Daniels is kind of a top priority because if Alabama's secondary plays the way it has most of the season, you do your job, then he can still, escape and make a big play. I think that if they can keep Jaden Daniels in check, that's a big check mark just in terms of getting Alabama in the win column in this game. Defensively, I think the pass protection has been pretty solid on Bryce Young. He's going to continue to do some crazy things back there. because he's just a special dude. But I think for Alabama, they're going to, one, want to get pressure, but two, play well in the back end, and three, just not let him slip out and make plays with his legs, being Jaden Daniels. So that, for me, it's not where it stops, but it's certainly where it starts in terms of Alabama having success down at Tiger Stadium.
You spoke about Bryce Young, being a non-Alabama fan. I don't want to give somebody credit from Alabama, but it's hard not to appreciate the greatness of Bryce Young. I watch him. I watch Alabama games. I watch him play, and I catch myself tuning in just to watch him, right? What has been something like, you've got to watch him play for 3 years at Alabama, and, what are some of the things that I guess you're going to miss because he's not going to be there next year, and some of the things that, that we don't really get to see on camera? You get to see a little bit more behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, I mean, first things first, we don't get to see anything behind the scenes.
Saban's got that thing all locked.
Saban's got that locked down.
Let's make one thing clear: we're not getting any kind of practice access.
We're on to Seattle.
That thing sucks because he does stuff that's special in the games, but you can see that in practice too. And it's just, he has that. He wants to make a play on every play. That's what got him hurt in Arkansas. I think they want to protect him from himself because Bryce isn't going to give up on a play. And I know some people are like, well, he could probably make a lot more plays if he just decided to tuck and run. He's got his eyes downfield and trying to make a play every play. It's almost kind of – Tua had the same problem. That's why he got hurt at Mississippi State and ended his Alabama career. But, those dudes are competitors, and he's a special guy. He's going to be able to keep a play alive with his elusiveness and his awareness in the pocket. And we've seen it multiple times now this season to where it looks like things are breaking down, and Bryce is standing back there for, 10 plus seconds and then finds a guy up and downfield for a touchdown. He's a magician, a wizard, whatever you want to call it. And the quarterback position after this year will be an interesting one in Tuscaloosa, and we'll see what happens. But they're certainly going to miss number 9 when he moves on.
How do you defend him? Like, what's the scouting report in your mind of how to defend Bryce Young? Because he is a wizard. He does run, get out of the pocket, and he's always looking to make the big play. But there has been some games where he hasn't played as good as others. And what's the way to defend him?
It's tough. You got to get pressure on him. You got to give him different things to look at, mix it up. You just change the picture for him because he's a smart player. He studies a lot. He prepares well. All that cliche mumbo jumbo. He does that. He's that kind of kid. And I just think if you kind of take away what he wants or what maybe he thinks he wants, because he's the kind of guy too it's that take what the defense gives mentality. And you can tell, going back to the wide receivers, there's been times when a guy like Jermaine Burton's been open and Bryce has missed him. He's not perfect by any means, but he usually makes the right reads. If you can just kind of change it up on him and maybe confuse him a little bit, it's tough to do, but it can happen. That's the way. Again, getting pressure on him because he's not likely to run as much as, say, a Jaden Daniels or KJ Jefferson, somebody else in the SEC. So getting pressure on him helps, but just making it difficult and hard for him to know what to expect from a defensive standpoint. And I'm sure defensive coordinators think they can do that, and most can. It's just Bryce is a smart dude, and you got to kind of outsmart him when it comes to that.
And when it comes to the LSU, I guess Alabama, we've been struggling with whether it's a rivalry or not because LSU has not won a home game in a long time against Alabama. Obviously, 2019 happened, and even that was probably LSU's best team. And then you were able to see it was still a 5-point game. I'm kind of the opinion of where do y'all sit on this? Because Nick can't coach forever. He can't. He just can't do it for very much longer. So me either. And so I'm just wondering where y'all sit with you have a Heisman winning quarterback, a running back that could probably win the Heisman, but what you're not lacking, but the only thing that separates former Alabama teams is the vertical threat. You get the guy from Louisville, you haven't seen him yet. You get Eli Ricks, you haven't really seen him yet until this past weekend. So does it feel like you're kind of, I don't want to say grasping for straws, but still trying to figure it out while you're trying to build a plane in the air a little bit?
Well, first off, I do think that Alabama's players, especially the younger, the current players, view LSU as a rival. I mean, before this year's game, they probably viewed LSU more of a rival than Tennessee. That's just been a competitive game. Yeah, Alabama's won more often than not, but they've heard the stories about those games, and just they can look on Sundays in the NFL and see how many guys from both Alabama and LSU are on rosters. So I do think they view it as a rivalry game. But no, I mean, I wouldn't say. I don't think Alabama is grasping at straws yet. I think if they can get Tyler Harrell to be what they wanted, that would be a boost for the offense. I don't know if it's going to come this late in the season, though. We saw him against Mississippi State, but it was literally in the fourth quarter when Jalen Milroe was in a quarterback. Sure, they've had a couple weeks to prepare. Maybe you throw him out there, but do you want that guy's first experience in an Alabama uniform really to be in Tiger Stadium when all those fans just screaming down on you? I don't see that really.
It's at night, Charlie. It's a night game.
I mean, they know what's coming from an environment standpoint, and again, it goes back to the struggles on the road. If they can't get out of their own way and not commit just dumb penalties, really, then it's going to be a battle. If Alabama plays up to its potential, if they get guys just to play consistent football, catch the football, not make boneheaded mistakes, then yes, Alabama should be able to win the game. But this Alabama team, you don't know what you're going to get from that standpoint. They're saying all the right things, and if they execute, then yeah, they should win, but we'll see what happens.
Sounds like Saban's lost his stuff.
Charlie, I appreciate you taking the time out on this on Halloween to come and talk with us. Before I let you go, we do this with everybody that comes on the show prior to the game week. What is your prediction for this weekend score-wise? Now, I have a bet that I got at 17. I got the line at 17 2 weeks ago. So do you think my bet is safe, one? And two, what do you think the score prediction is for this weekend?
I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't even thought about a score prediction yet.
Okay.
Honestly, for me, score predictions, I don't know. I don't put a ton
It's
of
more
thought
for the
into it.
listeners listening than us.
This man's nervous.
No, listen, I really I appreciate your guys' optimism about everything, because it is a situation where if history repeats itself, it's going to be a long night Saturday. But I do think 17's a lot. On the road. For him, what?
It's a long night.
I think if everything goes to Alabama's plan, then it's a long night for LSU.
Okay.
But 17 is a lot.
Yeah.
On the road, again, with everything, I don't want to be a broken record because then people don't want to listen. But with the way they played on the road, I mean, I think Alabama can win, but it would probably be 10, 12, 13 points.
And the only thing that gives me, the only reason, not the only reason, but the real reason for my optimism, and I think a lot of our optimism, is we saw what happened last year, right, with a team that wasn't very well coached, and it was depleted, and they just had nothing to play for outside of just pure pride, and then played extremely well last year on a team that was significantly better than them. I think the line was like 27 or something crazy like that. So that is the source of my optimism. I just feel like LSU is a little bit better coached than they were last year, and I think that they're in a better position. So that's why. Now listen, I didn't take them money line. I took them plus 17. So if we win, as long as you don't lose by 17, I win.
That's a lot of points. I think Alabama can win the game, but given what they've been able to do on the road, it'll probably be a lot closer than 17.
I appreciate it, dude. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night, and if you're going to be in Baton Rouge this weekend, enjoy the festivities, enjoy the tailgating, enjoy the drinks and the food, and hopefully it's a good game. That's all we can ask for.
Are you coming to town? Are you coming to BR?
I am staying in New Orleans.
Okay, well, you're going to be in Louisiana, though. That's fine.
Yeah.
They're close enough.
That's fine.
It is. I mean, like,
The second
I've done
most
it enough
dangerous.
now. Yeah, exactly. But it's just usually the wife comes with, and if she had a choice, we're going to New Orleans.
Yeah, listen, I don't blame you. Y'all go to Harrah's, throw some money down on the blackjack table, watch the game.
Maybe even Texas Hold'em.
Man, I appreciate you. Enjoy your night, and go Tigers.
Tell Eli,
Yeah.
Tell Eli I said what's up.
Later, man.
I wish we could talk to Eli. Believe me.
We're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
See you
man.
guys.
Have a good night.